Meanwhile, foreign investors will wait and watch the election results very closely before they invest in India, says former Fed Reserve Governor and economics professor at Chicago Booth School of Business. In fact, he also has stated that the RBI Governor, Dr. Rajan, has really thought out of the box and added the fact that his contribution to the way the central bank has functioned and the policies that have been implemented has been very conducive in the current environment. ETNOW's Malani Krishna caught up with the gentleman and began by asking him if investors believe that the worst is behind for the Indian economy.
There's been a major readjustment in expectations, and I think there's some uncertainty associated with the upcoming election. So I think many investors are going to take a wait-and-see attitude to see what happens and then what policies are likely to come out of there. But certainly there's been an important readjustment, and I think there's greater clarity in what needs to be done.
I was going to ask you about the polls because in 2014 is essentially going to be a turning point as far as the polity of India is concerned. Do you think it's also going to be a defining moment for the Indian economy? And what is it that the government, the new government in place, should really do to keep this momentum going, especially for the economic factors that are looking up?
The key thing are the fundamental structural reforms to make sure that labor markets are a bit more open and more competitive, that the overall economy is more open and more competitive, and that's really the key thing that drives growth, and growth is really the key driver to bring people out of poverty.
One of the key things that has really crippled growth is the firefighting on the inflation side. Traditional methods like tight monetary policy has been ineffective beyond a point to control high inflation. There's talk of inflation targeting. How viable do you think that is in India?
I think it's very important to build credibility, and I think Governor Rajan has been doing that to try to make sure that people expect that inflation will not get out of control, because if expectations get out of control, no matter what the government or the central bank may be doing at the time, it will be very difficult to keep things on track. And so I think by trying to be credible, by making sure that interest rates are high enough to make it credible that inflation is not going to get out of control, that puts in motion the base for good fundamental long-run growth and investment.
In context of monetary policy, you've said that one would rather be right or lucky, and that depends on whether one's an academician or a policy maker. Which of more is Governor Rajan, an academician or a policy maker?
He's an expert on both because he's had great policy experience and he's great academic experience, and hopefully he will be both right and lucky.
Okay. When he took over as the governor of the Reserve Bank of India, you'd advised him to be bold with the measures that he takes as the governor. Do you think in hindsight he's been more of an inflation warrior and has perhaps sacrificed growth too much, and now is the time to really push and boost growth?
I think he's been very bold in coming in. First, he put forward a program for trying to increase competition in the banking sector, allow more foreign entry, and allow more access the poor to banking and financial services, which I think is extremely good. It was right out of the box. And he's been facing a very tough inflation situation, not of his direct making. And so it's very important early on for him to build that credibility, because without that, expectations can get out of control and it'd be very difficult for long-term investment to come in.